listening to SCVI's Our Way on the Highway on KHTS, your hometown station. My name is Sarah Brown. I am guest hosting this month, filling in for Cindy Marcus, who unfortunately has the flu. We know you're listening, and we hope that you are feeling better already.
And I'm Nathan Yost, and I am the main host, and I am here with our co-host, Ian Lampert, who is currently the speech and debate teacher at SCVI International, our charter school. And I might want to introduce myself a little bit. I am a 10th grader at SCVI. I am currently, well, I used to be in the radio class, but now I'm in a radio club that is after school now, and I'm here now. So, Ian, it's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with a few questions. Why exactly did you choose speech and debate of all things?
It's because I personally experienced the benefits of a clear speech and debate education. I didn't have a class when I went to high school. I went to Cleveland High School in Reseda, California, and it was a club at the time. That meant that I was only able to experience the teamwork, practice, camaraderie, competitive aspects of the activity on a very touch-and-go basis. When I had the opportunity to teach it and to bring the experience that I had once or twice a week to learners all across the iLEAD system, I knew that I had to take that and run with it because I know what it's like to not be confident as a public speaker and see the growth that learners go through from a semester to semester, or in some instances, even a week-to-week basis. Because I was given so much from the activity, I knew that I had to give back.
Wow, that has to be really fulfilling to see students grow and learn from the program. Can you give us a little bit of background on how speech and debate started at iLEAD, what it looked like before, and then what it looks like now?
Sure. So my understanding is that years ago, there was a speech and debate class that met, but it wasn't a competitive class. That is to say, they debated key issues in the sense that most of us imagine when we think of speech and debate. That is to say, the great debaters with Denzel Washington. You've got a couple students in front of a bunch of people in an auditorium, and they're talking about issues of social concern. But there is a much larger speech and debate organization. It's actually called the National Speech and Debate Association. 150,000 students from across the country participated. Every year in June, there's a national championship tournament that started at the high school level in the 1920s and expanded to include middle school in the early 2000s. They've published a series of rules and regulations for public speaking events that go far beyond that image of the great debaters talking about a couple topics at podiums. There are elements of spontaneous speaking where you might have 2 minutes to prepare a 5-minute speech or 30 minutes to prepare a 7-minute speech answering a political question. That's called extemporaneous speaking. There's interpretation speaking or acting. Oprah Winfrey, for example, was a national finalist in dramatic interpretation, which is a 10-minute one-person show. And throughout all of that, I knew that there was a great opportunity for growth if we brought the National Speech and Debate Association's version of speech and debate events to iLEAD. So I started off at iLEAD NoHo, which is in the Valley. Then I expanded to SCVI and iLEAD Encino, another middle school in the Valley. And since that time, the growth has been tremendous. At SCVI, for instance, Gianni DiCenzo, as a sophomore, has earned degrees of distinction, honor, and merit from the National Speech and Debate Association. Trinity Grillet, who's a freshman who just joined, she's already earned merit and honor degrees, and there are many others. And the cool thing about it is the National Speech and Debate Association doesn't only reward those who are always going to win, because they want to encourage those who maybe aren't as proficient in public speaking going into the activity. You get points and credit with the National Honor Society just by showing up and trying. And I think that's a tremendous lesson to learn. You don't have to come in with the oratory and presence of Martin Luther King Jr. You can start off at a really low level and slowly build. That's what we've been doing.
And how do I say this? Do you consistently see growth in the students that you work with? Like, say you have somebody who just shows up, as you put it, isn't skilled when they walk in the door. Have you been able to consistently see growth in every student that participates in the program?
No, and
Okay.
that's because participate is something that is really determined by the student.
Okay.
That is to say, if a student is there because they were forced to be there and they've got no real desire to grow in the activity, they're probably not going to. Growth is a two-way street. A teacher can put every option and every opportunity, but not everybody is going to take it, and that's fine. I think that just having the option of trying to participate in the association and the activity, I think that's the big benefit that we're bringing. That said, if students stay, even for a couple weeks, if they're able to get through the first difficult period, then I do see that growth. It's just, can they make it past the first initial stage?
What's so difficult about that first initial stage?
Because I think the amount of options are overwhelming. There's so many options that you can take in a speech and debate course. There's a prepared speaking event where you have 8 to 10 minutes to present an entirely memorized speech on an issue of social concern. It's a 5-paragraph essay that is expanded considerably past what most other courses, or most other life opportunities really, ever expect of someone, let alone someone in middle or high school. There's the acting events. I think there's 5 different acting events. And again, they're 8 to 10 minute performances that are pretty trying for those who don't have that experience. Even the spontaneous speaking events. For some people, it's easy to get in front of a crowd and make something up. For others, it's very, very difficult. And even if somebody is shy, quiet, they don't feel like at first they're going to be ready, if they're able to push past those first few weeks of the trial period, then I see that growth. They just have to make it there.
Okay.
Now, going back a little bit more to you, how you said it was a club for you, did it ever change for you back in then? Like, did it ever become a class? Did you ever put any effort to make it a class, or was it just remained at a club for the whole time for you?
It's difficult, especially at very large schools with many layers of bureaucracy and red tape, for one student to make that degree of difference. I got really into speech and debate, I think, a little too late. It was during my senior year of high school. And at that stage, I was more concerned with college apps. I was more concerned with my friendships than trying to push for it to be a class. And after I graduated from high school, then from college, then from grad school, I realized how important it is that students beyond SCVI, beyond the iLEAD system, I think really every student in America ought to have that opportunity. And some states prioritize public speaking and debate education more than I think California does. I think they do it more in an appropriate way. For example, in Texas, there is a speech and debate specific credential for teachers. Whereas within California, most speech teachers tend to have an English credential, that they tend to do speech on the side. And because it is such a consuming activity for those who are really into it, most competitions are on Saturdays and the Sundays, and teachers are already so overburdened, it's rare that you're able to persuade somebody at a school without the speech class to just take it on as a club.
I see.
So, you seem to be thinking that speech and debate is really important to you. Do you think there's any benefits from it compared to someone who has not taken speech and debate, compared to someone who has taken speech and debate?
Absolutely. I'll list 5. I think the first benefit is the confidence that is gained from having to share one's thoughts and stories in front of a crowd. That's not an experience that most people have, and once they're able to get through it, especially during middle and high school, it makes things like business presentations or teaching far easier in the future. I think the second benefit of speech and debate education is the camaraderie that one feels with a team, because you win and lose as an individual in one category, but every single placement that you receive impacts the overall team rankings. iLEAD has been fortunate enough to get a School of Excellence award at the national championship for the last 2 consecutive years, and that isn't based on one outstanding student. It's based on a team of outstanding students. So the second aspect is the camaraderie. The third aspect is the fashion. Speech and debate tournaments have pretty cool James Bond style clothing that folks wear. It's somewhat formal. And I got really into shirts and ties and those combinations as a result of speech. I thought it was cool.
So now you're a snappy dresser because of speech and debate?
I think I can attribute that to speech and debate and to my fiance. Otherwise, I would be in sweatpants. I think the fourth key aspect of speech and debate and the education you get from it is writing. Because in order to be a good persuasive orator, you have to have proper oratory that is written in a good way. In fact, for a speech to be accepted as legitimate by the governing associations, it needs to be perfectly MLA-sided. It has to be formatted in a way that prepares you, I think, in a nice way for college. And the final thing that you take from speech and debate is, beyond confidence, courage. The courage to take controversial stances on issues that you really care about. And I'll give an example. One of the iLEAD sites that I work at, it is a very progressive, I would say, liberal culture. But there's a few conservative kids that are also there. And one of the speech kids was in a position where he wanted to share conservative opinions on a hot button issue, and that was abortion. And he felt at first like he couldn't share those opinions because he was surrounded by a miasma in culture that would disagree with him. But even though he knew that some judges would automatically vote him down because of that opinion, they wouldn't be able to see past their preconceived biases, he still felt the courage to share an unpopular view. And I think we need that. Because if we don't share unpopular views, our culture descends into echo chambers, where we're only surrounded by those with whom we agree. And that's the major issue that we see in the larger political context, where you see bubbles of liberal or conservative thought pop up, and dissenting voices either actively silenced or subtextually shamed into silence because they don't want to rock the boat. I like speech because it means every single weekend somebody can, either in a debate format or in a prepared speaking format, tell their story in a courageous and real way. And I really appreciate that.
Now, if you could be a judge at one of these set competitions, would you ever take that, knowing your knowledge of speech and debate?
Take what? Sorry?
Being like a judge or someone really important in at that competition, would you?
I mean, absolutely. One thing that I do at most Saturday competitions is I run them. I work with the California High School Speech Association, and I'm often asked by invitational tournaments, which are tournaments that are open not just to those from a particular community, but rather across a state or across the country, to run the tabulation room and give judges instructions. I was asked actually last Wednesday, which was right before a big competition at Stanford. And this was a competition with 24 states represented, including Alaska and Hawaii, 3 different countries that were represented. I was asked on the Wednesday before the tournament to run the tabulation room. And I said, let me bring in some help to do that. And we were able to make it happen. We were able to make the tournament finish earlier than in past years. And iLEAD, as a matter of fact, took first place out of the 300 schools that were there at the competition. But I couldn't judge because I was too busy helping all of those judges get to where they needed to go. And frankly, our team is getting so big that we're in most rooms at any given competition. So I would have a conflict of interest in judging local competitions.
I got you. I got you. So you said they won first place out of 300. Can you give us a little bit? As an insider, I know that iLEAD NoHo has been has rocketed to the top in a very short time. But can you give us some background on that? Can you tell us about some of the awards that your speech and debate team has won and how quickly they achieved those goals?
It's been good. In the last 3.5 years, iLEAD as a collective has won over 500 individual championships and well over, at this point, 4,000 individual awards. This year, iLEAD's been on a roll of winning sweepstakes awards, and sweepstakes means the best overall team at a given competition based on individual placements. We've won sweepstakes awards against basically every team in Southern California. There are only 2 teams that we have not yet beaten in the state at this stage, and I expect that we will.
I like that you say not yet, as opposed to that we can't beat. That's fantastic. What a great idea. And how long, traditionally, do you know how long a speech and debate team works together before they reach those levels?
It takes a long time. I mean, we were the first team, to the best of my knowledge, that was able to win a Speech School of Excellence Award at the National Championship in our 2nd year of existence. I'm not sure if any other team has done that. It may very well be, but I'm not sure.
You could be the record breakers. Okay, and now I'm going to embarrass you personally a little bit.
Okay.
Because could you tell us a little bit about some of the awards you, as a speech and debate coach, or mentor have won?
Sure. So when I was a high schooler, actually, I won the state championship in impromptu speaking. That's the event where you have 2 minutes to prepare a 5-minute speech. As a collegiate competitor, I won 2 national championships in mock trial, which is directly related to the speech and debate events. Then as a coach, I have coached the last number of impromptu championships. I want to say it's 5 at the state level, back to back to back to back to back.
Wow.
I think it's the first time it's been done. To be fair, I was not the head or primary coach for the first couple of champions because I did a lot of online consulting with people who wanted to get an extra leg up. But in addition to that, we had 2 national champions last year. So I won National Coach of a Champion awards. And we were the only program in the United States of America to have 2 national champions in the same year at the high school level back in 2017.
Wow.
So you're the excuse me. Let me clear my thoughts. So the speech and debate class has been around for a while, and you've obviously had a lot of students come and go. Who do you think overall your 5 best speech and debate students ever?
Ooh, tough question. Okay, so I am going to hope that they're not listening to this right now because otherwise some people are going to feel left out. What I'm going to say is I'll only go with alumni, not current competitors. I think that the best 5 alumni are probably first Kate Farwell. Kate Farwell is currently attending Brown University. She was the national champion in impromptu speaking last year, and she set the all-time California speech and debate points record with the National Speech and Debate Association. I think second, Chad Gassman. Chad Gassman was a state finalist in impromptu speaking. He was Kate's debate partner, and he was a year ahead of her. He actually had set the record for the California High School Speech and Debate Association points before Kate broke it.
Oh, wow.
So I think Chad and Kate are really tough to discount. I think next is, he's attending Georgetown University, by the way. The next is Stefano Rumi. The very first team that I coached for was Los Angeles Center for Enriched Studies back when I was at UCLA. And Stefano was one of the star competitors there. Stefano was an amazing academic who I think got straight 5s on all of his AP tests. Most of them he didn't actually take the courses for. He just studied separately for those tests. And he went on to be a Jefferson Scholar at the University of Virginia, which I think means he got a full ride, and he's an amazing entrepreneur, brilliant kid. And I wish that I had him as a student when I actually had a class, because back at the time, we were just people meeting outside of rooms, sometimes in the rain. I remember one instance in which Stefano and I just met to practice together, and we didn't even have a classroom to go inside. If we had better structural support, I think he really could have been an easy national champion. I think the fourth is Edie Sussman. At one point, I taught at Lorena High School, and Edie was not only an amazing mock trial competitor who's now competing for UC Berkeley, but she was one of the most proper and traditionally talented public speakers I've seen. She spoke like a very polished Mary Poppins, and judges appreciated that amount of almost librarian aesthetic that she brought to the table. And the final one is actually somebody who took a non-traditional route in speech and debate. I only had him for a single year, but in that 1 year I saw an amazing amount of talent. He was Levi Brown. Levi actually dropped out of school after his junior year to pursue rap music. And I think right now his handle is the original Black Lab, L-A-B, because his initials are Levi Allen Brown. He was an amazingly talented dramatic interpretation competitor, a really cool guy, and a very good rapper, so check out his music. That's the original Black Lab.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you've listed Brown, Georgetown, University of Virginia, UC Berkeley, and somebody who's kicked off their music career. Do you think speech and debate is a common denominator in helping forward young people's futures?
Absolutely, because speech and debate, if you stick with it, it shows a couple traits. It shows determination and drive, a willingness to get critiqued and to learn from those critiques, willingness to put yourself out there, and most importantly, I think, a willingness to show the courage to acknowledge one's faults, that they may not be the best and they have room to grow and learn. Because every tournament they're getting ballots saying, here's what you could have done better. And if you have really low self-esteem and you're not willing to grow, then that might break you. But if you're willing to take the wisdom from that, then it'll help you throughout the rest of your life.
All right. That was pretty interesting. A lot of speech and debate facts, but we're going to have to go to a quick commercial break. This has been KHTS, your hometown station, our way on the highway from SCVI.
You worry because your mom and dad aren't as active and are finding it more challenging to live on their own. The answer? Premier Assisted Living Community, Oakmont of Santa Clarita, now leasing. Located on Newhall Ranch Road, Oakmont of Santa Clarita, bringing comfort and luxury to assisted living. Your parents can enjoy 5-star amenities and panoramic views in a world-class community. No other assisted living community has this kind of luxury and amenities in our valley. Visit oakmontofsantaclarita.com.
Little iLEADers is the newest preschool in the Santa Clarita Valley. At Little iLEADers, our outstanding teachers lead with intellect, perspective, and heart. That means our programs provide a warm, nurturing atmosphere to meet the unique needs of each child. We believe that play is a powerful form of learning for young children. That's why our kids have every opportunity to learn through the magic and excitement of play. Parents, schedule a tour today by calling 303-0400 or online at littleileaders.org.
The Santa Clarita Artists Association has a new gallery in downtown Newhall on 6th Street between Main and Railroad, right across from the Canyon Theater Guild. The gallery features our members' paintings, sculptures, and one-of-a-kind handcrafted gift items. Whether you're an art lover, buyer, or an artist wishing to join, visit our website at santaclaritaartist.org, come to our free monthly meetings at Barnes & Noble, or stop by the gallery. For upcoming events and exhibits, check us out at santaclaritaartist.org. We make visual art visible.
When it's time to improve your game, it's time for Roger Dunn. Roger Dunn Golf Shops have all the top brands with professional assistants who will actually guide you with helpful advice. They've got it all. The brand names, the apparel, accessories, clubs, training equipment, videos, GPS rangefinders. It's the one store to find the perfect gift for your golfing enthusiast. Roger Dunn is the only Santa Clarita store where you can trade up your equipment. Improve your game. Roger Dunn on Main Street in Old Town Newhall.
We all know someone impacted by the Las Vegas tragedy. It's touched our valley and thousands of households. Many of us were actually there. In Santa Clarita, we had 1 fatality and 14 injured by bullets. Many more were injured trying to escape. Others are still traumatized by their ordeal, finding challenges returning to normal lives. The law firm of Owen Patterson Owen is helping many Las Vegas victims get financial assistance for their ordeal. If you know someone impacted by the shooting, visit opolaw.com.
Now FM, 98.1 FM and AM 1220, your hometown station.
Welcome to SCVI's Our Way on the Highway on KHTS, your hometown station. I'm Ian Lampert, filling in for Cindy Marcus, who is out with the flu.
And I'm Nathan Yost, back again, and here we have our guest, Sharon. I forgot your last name. Sorry.
Brubaker.
Thank you. You helped me out. Anyway, you are let me correct myself, you're a grief recovery specialist, is that right?
Yes, I'm a certified grief recovery specialist. I've been doing it for 12 years.
How about you tell us a little bit about what that is exactly?
So a certified grief recovery specialist is someone who works with people that have suffered a loss of any kind. So even though we know that death and divorce are the most popular losses, there are 43 known losses that a person can experience. And what I do is I just walk them through the process of the grieving process. And I teach an 8-week educational program that helps them discover the areas in their own heart that are broken and lost.
You said there were 43 kinds
Yes.
of grief and losses. What are some of the types that we might expect to experience based on our age groups?
So bullying, social media bullying for sure, death, unfortunately, death is definitely going to be one. Loneliness, breakup of a romantic relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Those are some of the ones. Pet loss that come to the top of my head. Even just the breakup of a friendship. You know, if you have a really close friend and they move away. Moving is definitely one. We know that kids that have moved quite often during their childhood will experience a loss. And think about it this way. You're at school, you've built some friends, and you've been there a year, and then dad gets a new job, you have to move. You get to the new school, you build friends, and then you have to move.
Yeah, I've been through that about 7 or 8 times, but I've learned to cope with it. What do you think are some of the most common and some of the least common that you've encountered so far?
Most common losses? Definitely death is the most common that I work with. But it's really strange. A lot of people come to me through death, but then they realize they have all of this stuff in their childhood that they never really dealt with. And that starts to come up, or they've been holding it in. And so some of those things would be like a pet loss. Again, the same scenarios over again. But they discover it for themselves that it's stuck in their heart. Child molestation, rape are definitely in the top 10 for sure.
And some of the least, probably the ones you dealt with the least would be?
So would be that we would put down, there's these intangible losses that a person can experience. So loss of trust, loss of safety, loss of security, loss of faith, loss of fertility. So those are some that are on the least popular. And what does that mean? That means that I have to deal with the tangible ones, the tangible losses that we can absolutely deal with. My dog died, and I'm grieving over that. But yet I have a loss of trust because of the way my dad handled it. So we deal with the tangible one first, and then we go to that one.
So people always say to people that they think would have grief, move on, get over it, you should just leave this alone. Does that actually help? If not, what happens afterwards?
It absolutely doesn't help. One of the reasons is that we try to make the people think that we understand what they're going through, when in actuality we don't. So what happens is what happens a lot with people is we don't want to talk about the heart, what the heart feels like. It's like, I don't want to have a conversation with you. What if I make you cry? What if I upset you? So instead of talking about what's going on in your heart, I'll talk about what's going on in your head. And so I move you from your heart to your head. Oh, dude, just get over it. Big boys don't cry. Come on. Are you still dealing with that today? And then it makes you start second guessing, well, did I really have a pain here? Is my heart really broken? So that's kind of what happens in that area.
Okay. Interesting. Have you actually suffered any form of grief or loss in your life?
Yes, I have. That's actually what got me here. In 2007, my nephew, Austin, who was 10 years old, drowned in Lake Havasu while on a family vacation. And I just couldn't find any program that really worked for myself or for my sister. And I found this program, and we signed up for it. And after I took the program, I knew that I needed to help other people. In 2015, his brother was killed in a motorcycle accident. So yes, I have, along with a list, I probably touch one of every 43. Trust me, if we go through them, I have a lot.
Anything you got to say, Ian?
Yeah, I'm wondering, how would you say grief is different from depression?
So a lot of times grief can be diagnosed as depression. That's a great question. And so it is not uncommon for us to feel less than happy or feel sad when a life-changing event affects us, right? So for example, when Austin died, I definitely felt sad. I felt like going in the bed. I felt like covering up with the covers and never coming out. My heart was absolutely broken. So what happens is when we go to our doctor, quite often they will diagnose us with depression, when in actuality it could be compounded grief that's compound over time, or it can be just absolutely grief. So it is misdiagnosed quite often, unfortunately.
I have more of a personal question. My friend actually kind of deals with a little bit of depression. She goes through a lot of loneliness at school. Her family has some issues with her, and honestly, I'm probably the only person she actually sees to as being happy with. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any way to help her out right now?
I think that if she feels very comfortable with you, we talk about being a heart with ears. So literally just listening to that person, right? And that's a lot of what I do, is I just listen to them. And I think you ought to give yourself a pat on the back, because I think that what you've done is you've created a safe place for her. She has a safe place to go and talk. She feels comfortable. She feels like you hear her. And probably you're not giving her a bunch of advice back. So I would say continue with that. Continue on with that, because most time grievers just need to be heard. They need to be heard and listened to with respect. They need somebody to hear them, because people cut them off all the time. Now, there is absolute depression. I want to absolutely say that. There's absolute depression that needs to be diagnosed and be treated. Sometimes, along with the the diagnosis of depression, we can work out the areas of grief that have also built up in their heart over time, and we can work those areas out. But I think what you're doing has been really amazing. And absolutely, I'd be willing to talk to her anytime.
Okay. So there's different kind of people that react differently to grief. Some tend to cry a lot, some tend to just wallow a little bit, and some tend to not react, like they don't shed a single tear. Is there any difference between each of those, and have you encountered any of these?
Yes. Okay. So, first of all, we say tears may or may not be a sign of grief. Have you ever felt really bad, really down, your heart really broken, you're at school, but you weren't crying, you're just having a crappy day? Probably some grief going on in your heart, but you weren't crying. So we know for a fact as grief recovery specialists that tears may not be a sign of grief. When Austin died, I had to go shopping to get some clothes for the funeral, and I was absolutely walking around in the store. I was not crying, but the thought going through my head the whole time was, I'm buying clothes for my nephew's funeral. But I wasn't crying. So yes, I was absolutely grieving, but I wasn't crying. So we don't look for tears as a sign. Tears, if they do come, can sometimes give us relief. And they're really an outward sign of our love for that person or an outward sign of our broken heart. So tears can absolutely come, for sure.
Interesting. Anything you want to add to that, Ian?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you feel like you have now recovered from that death.
Yes, I feel recovered. So what does recovery feel like? Recovery feels like fond memories will return. I can think of Austin. I can talk of him. I can talk of him openly. I don't break down. I absolutely miss him. There's nothing that grief recovery can do to stop from the missing. I absolutely miss him. But I can talk about him. I think of him fondly. We talk all the time because he was 10. You know, what age would he be right now? What would he be doing? Would he have a girlfriend? We talk about him all the time. Do I feel recovered? 100%. When Austin died, I felt as if someone stabbed me in the heart with a knife. And through doing my grief recovery, I feel like the knife was removed, but the pain is gone. There's no pain there. I probably will always have that hole for him in my heart where I miss him, but the pain is absolutely gone. Is that clear?
It is. I remember reading somewhere, and this is just from the wisdom of the internet, a theory that if, say, one was in a relationship, and we're talking about high school,
Okay.
for 2 years, then it would typically take half that time, or 1 year, to feel as if they've truly moved on. Is there any scientific basis for this internet theory?
No, absolutely not. We teach in our very first class the myths that people in society will tell us, trying to help us get over a loss. And one of the things is that time heals. Time will heal. But how much time? There's no scientific base on that. How much time? 1 year, 2 years? I have met people that have had a loss or breakup of a romantic relationship come to me after 30 years, and they're still crying as if it just happened yesterday. So no, time does not heal. Action within time heals. Action steps, talking about it, talking to your friend, admitting that your heart is broken, giving yourself permission to do the grieving process. The action steps within time is what heals.
What do you think is the best solution to help someone in general, like the best possible way to cheer them up or get them out of this stage of grief and get them more happy?
Number one, don't try to cheer them up. Don't try to change them for where they're at. Be there. Be their friend. Listen to them. Go along the path with them. And it may take a lot longer than you would think for them to come around, but just be there and be listening and be a listening ears, a heart with ears, I think is the number one way. Because I think most people don't feel like they have a safe place to talk. Think about that. We start going through our head, even as young kids, she won't listen to me, or she won't understand, he won't understand. And so we avoid having the tough conversations. It's really, really sad.
A little bit more in depth with you. Is there any patients that you've dealt with that have really bonded with you, or some people that have just not felt safe around you? Is there any situations like that that you've been in?
Yes. So I don't have patients. I have clients.
Yeah.
And what happens, because we walk this journey together, and I share my life with Austin, my life with Donovan, and all of my loss losses as well as theirs as part of the process. So what happens is that a bond builds. And so then we're all of a sudden we're best friends. So it is kind of cool going through the process with somebody. You really get to know them because it's raw. It's raw honesty, right? If you and I were sitting and every week we were sharing raw honesty with each other, a friendship would just build. It just naturally happens. And so what I find is a lot of times they want to come back and hang out and do additional work, which is kind of cool.
Ian, you want to build off of that?
Yeah, at what point would you say that somebody ought to seek professional help?
Okay, great question. So if you went outside right now and got hit by a car and broke your leg, at what point would you seek medical attention? Right away. I'd call 911 for you. It's the exact same thing with grief. But what I find happens is that the shock of the loss happens, the numbness happens, and then we start searching for everything that we think will fix it. And so we start to look in other areas. Well, I think I need to do this. I think I need to go here. But we know that the sooner you come, the better, the bigger response you're going to get. The rawness is right there, and we're dealing with that grief. So it's kind of cool.
If someone's not really comfortable talking at all, or they just want to keep everything inside, how do you deal with a situation like that?
Just have them in the room, have them listening to us, have them seeing what's going on. I do a lot of group sessions as well. So just having someone in the room with other grievers is going to help them, because you don't have to really talk about it to get recovered, but you have to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth about ourselves always. We have to tell the truth about what's in our heart. So just doing their homework assignments is an action step, and they will get recovered from just being around there.
I want to move on to a more subtle topic. Does grief or depression at all, is it like a key component to stuff like suicide within someone's mind?
I believe so. I believe grief for sure. Unresolved grief can have a lifelong negative impact on our capacity for happiness. So there's all of these things. So what do I mean by that is that grief compounds, right? So let's say you lost your dog, okay? I'm going to use something simple, but then someone stole your bike, your favorite bike. So now that something adds on top of that. And then your grandpa dies, and now your grandma dies. But you don't deal with any of those. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger in your heart.
Interesting. Have you ever dealt with a situation like that before?
In what? To explain it a little more.
Like a position where they've had so much that they haven't been able to deal with it?
You've probably seen this before in people that are grieving, and it comes out this way. It just becomes an explosion. They absolutely cannot handle it, and they will explode. Have you ever been at Starbucks getting a coffee, and you see someone who totally get upset at the cashier or really go off on her for no reason because his coffee wasn't hot enough? Probably what happens is that the poor person is just so full of hurt and pain that it just starts to explode, and it'll explode right there in front of us.
Interesting.
What is your biggest regret that perhaps occurred early in your career as a grief recovery specialist, and what have you done to overcome that regret?
My biggest regret, I would have to say my biggest regret would have to be the times that I went inward and didn't constantly search out grievers. And sometimes my own personal life can take me away from the moment and being present. And so things have happened in my life where I haven't really pushed my business or haven't really been out there. I think that's probably the biggest thing, because a lot of people haven't really heard of grief recovery. They don't know that there's someone out there that just deals with grief. I'm not a therapist. I'm not working in your head at all. I think there's totally a place for therapy. I literally am just working in the heart. So I'm really just trying to work in the heart area.
When you first became a grief recovery specialist, what was it like for you?
Very scary. I actually almost didn't do it. I almost didn't do it because I thought, I confused therapy and grief recovery, and I thought, what if I hurt someone? What if I lead them wrong? What if I lead them astray? And so I almost didn't do it. I am so happy to sit here and tell you guys that it has been the most rewarding thing of my life, that I absolutely am glad that I did it.
What films or TV shows do you think do a good job of realistically showing grief in a way that might be useful for the grieving to see?
This Is Us. They absolutely bring that up a lot. It's really popular. Also, Grey's Anatomy does a lot. They quite often show raw grief, which is so cool. I remember a scene on Grey's Anatomy specifically where a woman was just laying on the bathroom floor because it was cold and just crying in her grief because her boyfriend had died. So yes, those are the two that jump out to me right away, for sure.
And which shows do you think misrepresent grief in a way that you'd like to correct?
I'm not a big TV watcher.
Or films or books?
Well, have you guys ever studied out? Well, they teach us a lot. It's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, The 5 Stages of Grief and Loss. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote the article in 1969, and she wrote it on death and dying. I thought I turned that off. On death and dying. And the stages were actually written for someone who had been given a terminal illness, right? And these were the stages that they would actually go through: denial, anger, those sorts of things. But what happened is, somewhere along the way in 1973, a psychiatrist attached them to grief. And a lot of people are actually out teaching that we have 5 stages that a griever goes through. And so I would have to say that is one of the biggest myths out there. The griever absolutely doesn't go through a stage, because I couldn't figure out how to make these stages fit and what they actually felt like.
A little quick question. What do you think is the most impactful form of grief that anyone can ever experience? Like, which one hurts them the most out of all 43?
All grief is individual. All grief is unique. So something that may impact me really deeply may not impact you as much, because it all depends on what you're going through. And it all depends on your relationship with that person or that animal or that pet, and all of the things that you have incomplete. So, for example, when Austin died, he and I was sitting in grief recovery with my sister, who was his mother. I was his aunt, and my daughter was his cousin. We were all experiencing his grief at a different level, and we were all grieving different parts of our relationship with him.
But what do you, in your own opinion, what do you think is the most impactful out of
I don't think I could judge that, because something may affect me really deeply where it may not affect you as well. Like, for example,
it's always random.
It's unique and individual to each person. So, for example, let's say we both had a pet. You and I had a dog, and the dog died. It may not affect me as deeply as it may affect you. You may have loved that dog and felt, gosh, I really wished I didn't feed him Wednesday night. I felt bad that I didn't get the chance to feed him, or I didn't get a chance to say goodbye before he was gone. Where I would be like, well, I'm so glad he's gone. I'm glad that he's gone on to a better place. I'm glad that he's not suffering anymore. We can both handle that separately.
Interesting. Now, we have not much time left. We're going to go ahead and cut into commercial break. This is KHTS, Our Way in the KHTS, your hometown station. SCVI's Our Way in the Highway. And this has been Sharon Brubaker and Ian Lambert. I'm Nathan Yost, and thank you for listening so far.
How smart is a Century 21 Troop real estate agent? They have more brain power than a barrel full of Einsteins and the gentle wisdom of a monk. They know Santa Clarita, your neighborhood, and they might even know your mom, so watch your language. They can simplify, multiply, and leap tall mountains of paperwork in a single bound. Plus, they know where to find the best cup of joe. This is who they are, this is what they do. Call Century 21 Troop Real Estate at 661-705-0700. That's 661-705-0700. Century 21 Troop Real Estate, smarter, bolder, faster. Each office is independently owned and operated.
Live life juiced up at Juice It Up Valencia. Come in and try our great tasting smoothies, protein shakes, acai, and wheatgrass for your healthy lifestyle on the go. Also, enjoy our 10 flavors of tantalizing zinc frozen yogurt and selection of healthy toppings. Juice It Up Valencia is located at the corner of Newhall Ranch Road and Copper Hill Drive in the Office Depot Plaza. Open Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. and Sundays from 8 until 8. And remember to live life juiced up at Juice It Up Valencia.
Finding the right lawyer can be a challenge, but in Santa Clarita, there's no need to search when there's Hacker Law Group, Santa Clarita's premier litigation firm. Jeffrey Hacker has represented celebrities, financial institutions, accident victims, real estate developers, realtors, contractors, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and other individuals and companies with their legal challenges. Mr. Hacker is one of Santa Clarita's leaders, consistently listed as one of our most influential. When everything is on the line and you need legal counseling, visit hackerlawgroup.com.
Now FM, 98.1 FM, and AM 1220. Your hometown station.
Welcome back. You are listening to SCVI's Our Way on the Highway on KHTS, your hometown station. Thank you for Sharon for being able to be here with us today as a guest and sharing her life experiences, grief in general, and how to cope with it.
Thank you. I'm so honored. Thank you.
No, thank you. You've honestly shared a lot of information a lot of people can actually help themselves with. And anyway, when we're going to come back right now, obviously, we're going to have some fun with our speech and debate coach / co-host, Ian Lampert. Nice to be back and have you preferably talk more this time.
It is so good to be back.
Anyway, Sharon, didn't you have a topic that you wanted Ian
I thought I came up with sorry to talk over you there, a quick topic.
Okay.
How about debating? He's going to do a self-debate, correct?
Yes.
How about
himself.
debating which is better, Facebook or Twitter?
Interesting.
Okay, I'm going to represent Facebook with this voice, and I'm going to represent Twitter with this voice. I affirm that Facebook is better than Twitter, and there's two main reasons why. First, thoroughness, and second, the marketplace. First, let's talk about the idea of thoroughness. Facebook offers a plethora of opportunities for people to share long posts, short posts, pictures, links in a way that's easily digestible and able for anybody to comment on, which means that there's a lot more intellectual understanding occurring in the realm of Facebook. But the second reason it's preferable to Twitter is because of built-in apps like the Marketplace app that they just introduced, which means there's now a new opportunity to drive the economy forward using social media. Social media is expanding every year, and Facebook is a key component in that. They're not stagnant, they're growth-oriented, which is why Facebook is preferable to Twitter. I disagree. I think that Twitter is better than Facebook, and there's two main reasons why. First, because brevity is good. And second, because it destroys echo chambers in a far more meaningful way. First, brevity is a good thing. We're busy folks. We have to put food on the table for our families. We have to engage in studies. And our social media experience should be bite-sized. We should help people express themselves in concise and clear ways. Facebook is a time suck that can actually engender depression and a fear of missing out. Twitter, you just put an idea online and then people can look at that idea. That's better for America. But the second way in which Twitter is better for America is because it engenders a confrontational mindset that's actually a good thing. In other words, on Facebook, most posts are not public. They are private or constrained to somebody's friend list. But on Twitter, unless somebody chooses to do a private account, everything they put out there is viewable for anybody to see and comment on, which means we're able to dismantle echo chambers because you're not just repeating the same information your friends want to hear. You're putting something out there in a way that is going to cause a lot more beneficial discussion. Also, on Twitter, you've got the Wendy's Twitter. And if you haven't seen the Wendy's Twitter, it is hilarious because they drag every other fast food organization. For these reasons, Twitter is better than Facebook.
That's cool.
That was so funny.
So who gets to judge?
Honestly.
You, the viewers, get to judge. Also, I will now accept questions as both of the personas. Just say which one you're talking to.
Well, I honestly think the Facebook was a little more interesting to me, although the Twitter had more to say. Twitter definitely had a deeper voice. Definitely something.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely something. You have a radio voice, dude. It's so cool. On Facebook, you really feel that having the pictures and having more space really make a big difference. I tend to agree with you on that.
Absolutely, because variety is the soul of growth. There's the concept of the marketplace of ideas, which says that we ought to express all ideas through all mediums and let the public then judge in the same tenets as you might apply to the free market in an economic sense. That directly applies to Facebook, because if people want to repost memes, they're free to do so. If they want to post long political diatribes, they can do that too. The same opportunities aren't there on Twitter. In fact, Twitter recently tried to copy Facebook by doubling the amount of characters that one can use, but they're not fooling anyone.
Right.
In your own full personal opinion, which do you think is better?
I don't have a Twitter. I have Facebook.
But we go into another debate yourself. X or Y? Which is better?
Is this Pokemon X or Y?
No, just the letter X and Y.
Oh, that's easy. So I think first on the X side, then on the Y side. The two reasons that X are preferable to Y is first, because X represents a crossroads of life. We know about two roads diverging in the wood, and I chose the one less traveled by. That made all the difference. You see the two roads directly running into each other in X. Also, X represents treasure. X marks the spot. It is a key tenet of every pirate-related film or book in history. But now let's talk about why Y is better. Y is better than X because why not? Y is about questioning, about possibility. Y represents the Socratic method and the dialogue of questioning until one arrives at the truth, whereas X is confrontational. You try to X somebody out when you get rid of them in a mobster movie. You try to X them. So whereas X represents violence and confrontation, Y represents questioning and growth.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
I'm having another one on my mind. Not sure if I want to say it, but I will.
Your
Black or
ability
white?
to be able to do that is amazing.
Yes, very amazing. Next one, I want to go ahead and just get off my mind. Black or white?
Broadly,
Colors.
I think that they have to work together in order to achieve anything that's good, like a checkerboard or a chessboard or a cool gradient.
Do you find that you debate for everything in your life, like picking out a restaurant?
No, my fiance gets to choose.
And you don't debate it at all?
No.
Nope, because you're always going to lose.
No, because I am a wise man, and you don't debate with a fiance.
Do you turn it off at times, the debating?
Yeah.
You literally have to go in your mind and go, okay, I'm not debating this
It's
right
a
now.
zone. It's
a
a
zone. Yeah.
You got to get out of the zone.
Yeah. Cool.
Is there anything in life that you debate on?
Anything? Yeah, sure. Black or white, X or Y, Facebook or Twitter, or any other question that I'm given. It's a prompt.
Anyway, that was a fun 5-6 minute segment, but this has been KHTS, your hometown station, SCVI's Your Way in the Highway, and thank you and goodbye.